pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. First on our agenda, the minutes of January 16th, 2019.
Moved as written.
Second.
Any changes or edits to our last marathon
No, they look good.
of minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Public comments.
Seeing none.
No public comments? All right. Seeing none, agenda review.
We need to add 3 consent items to the agenda.
Okay. I would also suggest that we consider, we do have a non-public, a second non-public that we have to hear tonight. And in consideration of people who are here to speak to us ahead of that, I would suggest that we put it at the in between 5 and 6.
Sounds good.
Or we could even put it after F, before the board reports.
Yes, but do you want to do the staff report before that?
Staff reports in there, sorry.
Yeah, and DCOs in there too. So I think we should just put it
Okay,
So where you have
between 5 and 6.
it'll be between 5 and 6. Everyone okay with that? Any other changes to the agenda? Okay, so we have 3 consent items.
Yes. One of the items Brian is actually going to speak to you about, he obtained some quotes. We had talked a little bit, I think we talked with you, the admin had talked about mics and sound stuff for the auditorium, and then we also talked about for the gym, our functioning auditorium, and also from safety issues that were not finished because of grant funding running out. So Brian has some quotes and wanted to talk to you about a possible line item transfer to cover those things.
Yeah, so the first one is the mics. So essentially every time we have an event at the level of a play, we have to rent microphones from and usually it's from another school district. It's not always easy to get our hands on them. They obviously are having plays and events as well. So we had reached out to a couple different people, and we got this quote for $3,986.18. This essentially was it correlates with our equipment that we have, so there wouldn't be any issues, and something that it would just be kind of round out the whole entire thing, the auditorium with our new lighting system and everything, and we would have it up and running for a play for this year.
I'll move to approve.
And there are 5 of them we're going to get? I believe.
Looks like no.
Yeah, 5 just
Yeah.
the first line.
Yes, there are 5.
Was that enough?
Yes, for what we were doing.
Okay.
here. Obviously, when we have some of these larger plays, not everybody's mic, so we have. And we also have the mics that hang down for the background. So it's mainly for the main cast. So.
All right. So we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? We did have a second, right, Ken? Did you second it?
I do not, but I will.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm hearing things already. You put a
I
motion.
did.
Do we have a, so Ken? Second. All right, discussion.
How much are we paying to rent, and how long will it take to effectively pay off the?
Renting, each time we rented the last few years has been different prices because we are going with different schools. We've rented a few for about $400. Last year's play was a little bit more. I think we paid almost $1,000 or $1,200 for them.
In total?
In total, yeah,
Yeah.
for that one event. So we'll recoup our
Less than half the price.
right, exactly. So within 3 years, we already and
Is there potential to rent them, for us to be renting them in that case as well, and
yes,
make an
absolutely.
extra buck or two?
Yep. And when we do rent them, it's usually a drive to go. Mrs. Davis
Well, there's
is on,
time.
as far as, I believe she was up in Merrimack at one point, so, you know, to get stuff. Yeah, exactly.
How would we set the cost if we were to actually rent them out? How do we set that cost, and where those funds go? I guess if we collect
They would have to go in the general fund.
in the general.
We wouldn't have a particular, unless we set up a line in the next budget to specifically receive funds for rental.
Right. Okay.
I don't believe we have one.
No, you might be able to do it as a student activity fund if you did it as like a fundraiser to help the program.
It'd be ideal to have that money get diverted back into
We
that.
could ask Amber, but that might be the way.
Right, maybe
That we
help
could do
offset
it.
the cost to
Yeah.
the place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that, it might, since it's directly related,
Right.
it may be okay.
Yes.
To what extent do we need to get other quotes or do an RFP for this or something? This
It's
is
less than 5,000, so we don't need to get an RFP.
And I believe, did you say you got the?
I believe they called around, Bob and Brooke were doing this, so. And this is a company that they found to be the best.
And can we talk on a service contract or maintenance or upgrade?
That I think speak that too.
I can't imagine there's too much.
Right.
I mean, if you look at the list, there isn't really a whole lot there. I mean, outside of, it's a pretty self-contained system. I don't think there's nothing that's gonna be upgraded. I mean, they're gonna work while what their lifespan is and
If anything, probably just
repair, replacement.
And it's something we can also budget for going forward too, if we really get this, look at.
Any additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There you go. Second.
Following that, as you know, we've done a lot of upgrades to our security system over the last few years. We were hoping to get some more money from the state, in order to cover this last piece. Both of these have to do with, alarm systems for both sound and light, as a visual for inside the gym and out back. Currently, we don't have any kind of warning system if there was ever kind of an intruder or some type of emergency in the building. There would be no way for people outside during recess or up on the field or in the playground to know what's going on. That goes for the gym as well. If you're in the gym, and you make an announcement over the intercom system, you can not hear it at all in the gym. So this, we had, I believe they had two companies come in. This is one of the quotes that they got from each of these companies. And so there's two different pieces, so they would have to kind of work hand in hand. And Bob would be involved as well.
So we're looking at both of these quotes, Center Stage and JM.
Correct. Yeah.
And they are. Was this part of the recommendation of Homeland Security or?
Yes.
It was?
It was noted as a deficiency that we didn't have that, especially for places that can't hear.
We ran out of money in the grant, or we're waiting for a grant to come back?
We applied for the second grant that came up, and
Okay.
we were told that there was no more money.
Okay, so that grant's gone away. Now, if that grant was to come back up, would we be able to offset this with that?
No, but we could apply for more.
Could apply.
Not retroactive.
We also applied for the radios.
Yeah. They still have applications on file, but the first pool, we're hoping more gets released, but.
I remember a couple of years ago, we had kind of a similar discussion around not being able to hear anything in the cafeteria.
Yeah, we actually did, Bob was able to tweak the system a little bit, and it's
So we don't need to deal with the cafeteria.
nice and loud in there now.
Right.
It's actually, if you're like the only one in there, it's actually almost Stephanie. So,
I'm okay with that.
when the cafeteria is fully packed, you can still hear what's happening.
So this is really, it's two parts. It's both of these projects make up completion of everything we have.
Yeah, except for the walkie-talkies and.
So I'll move to approve both proposals.
Second.
Discussion.
When do you think?
Sorry, I noticed the JM Electric quote is back in May.
Right.
Is this price still good, or do we need to get any, things are?
Yeah,
Good.
they were,
Yeah.
they were done when we were working on the grant. I guess
Right.
potentially the prices could have gone
It
up.
does say valid for 90 days.
Yeah, they might.
They might have.
I would obviously ask,
Right, yeah.
so.
I think that would also then put us into the RFP
If they
zone.
go over $5,000.
Right, exactly. So, we can contact them.
We'll move to approve the amounts, obviously, that are presented. If it's different, then we need to
Do we
revisit.
need to, since that's concession, do we need to?
No, but.
My motion was for that amount, regardless, so.
So for the amount of $4,965.34 to Central State JV and $4,846.02 to JM Electric. Additional discussion.
Well, just to make, these were required by the Homeland Security
It was
audit.
seen as deficiency in our audit.
Recommended.
Recommended. Okay.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Alright. Third thing.
No, that was only one.
Wow, that was fun. It seemed like,
Two quotes, one item. We could discuss this in non-public if you have further questions, but we had a leave request, come in for unpaid leave from a staff member, and I did acknowledge that it was an emergency, so the staff member has taken the time, but I did want to bring it before you, to make you aware.
Move to approve.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
So I don't know how we count them, so no one?
Oh, I think I did count Brian's things a couple of times, so
All right.
that's it.
So we are done with consent.
Tally-ho.
Special education transportation contracts.
So this, actually, the RFP and the, bids were done last year. There was a request made of one of our, 5 school boards that this go out to the individual school boards, so we put that on everyone's agenda at that board's request. The special ed transportation is a little bit unique because we, when we put the bid out, we give the general area of the students that we are currently servicing. So we may say, we have someone from this area of Deerfield going to an out-of-district placement in Massachusetts. They bid accordingly, but that can change on a daily basis. So we get the general costs, and then go with the company that can provide the best cost for those routes that we've identified. But we are legally responsible to provide the transportation and need to do whatever we can to secure it. So these addresses and locations do change on a pretty regular basis. We only got one bid for a transportation company. So this is our primary company. We have, since this was done, there have been times when they didn't have the buses that we needed, so we actually have had to go out on an individual case-by-case basis in some of our districts to get transportation elsewhere. This was our main bid that was put out last year, and like I said, not necessarily the routes that were on there.
And this is representative of the entire SAU. This
That's
is
correct.
not just
That is
Deerfield.
not, it's not just Deerfield, no.
So, entertain a motion to approve the
So moved.
contract.
Second.
Discussion about the one bid that we got on the contract. No? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Review of warrant articles. Mr. Gross, would you like to join us? Good. For those of you who are not familiar, Eric Gross is the moderator for the school district.
So we have a big event coming up on Saturday.
June, fun and games.
And look forward to seeing everybody there perhaps. And So there are 5 warrants, as I understand it, pretty straightforward. But I wanted to just have a conversation about just some specifics. For instance, who will be speaking to each of the warrant articles as they come through, so that I can properly acknowledge the person to speak as soon after I read it. So if you have that information, I would like that. If not, if somebody could send it to me beforehand, that would be great. And then specifically, to the extent that you know, what kind of expected topics might there be of debate on any of the particular warrant articles, just so I can be aware of what may come up. And
I think for the first one, traditionally, the chair of the MBC has moved.
Historically, yes.
So I don't know if Andrea is going to do that, and I have not spoken with her about it.
that could be a game time decision.
Yeah, Zach is our representative who was on the NBC, so I would say Zach if it's us.
Sure.
Yay.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the presenting the number 2, which is the teacher's contract, would you like to do that?
Sure, I'm happy to do
Nate
that.
will do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that will probably beg some discussion. I would imagine that there is going to be quite a bit of communication around that and questions about whether it can be changed or it can't be changed or exactly what that entails.
And that was sort of the genesis of my question to you, Patty, in email, as to exactly what can be changed, in particular this one. I think the first one, pretty much that's standard boilerplate.
Yep.
Except that we know the total can be changed.
Right.
Right. But this one, I'm curious as to how exactly.
None of it can be changed.
Yeah, I didn't think so, because if you change the dollar amount, then you're basically saying that you aren't funding it.
Right.
Especially the first year. But
There probably will be a fair amount of discussion around percentages of increase, how steps work, how percentage raises work, what the contract entails. There will be, I would expect a fair amount of people who have different interpretations.
Review one document.
okay. I do have sort of a procedural question, not for this year, but for future years. If this warrant does pass, do you know if we'll come back again next year to authorize year 2?
No,
Or will it automatically fall into
yeah,
the
it's automatic. So we're required to inform the voters of the cost of the contract for each year. So that's what we've done here. But so the amount will be appropriated for the first year, and then in subsequent years, it's automatic.
And since all of the values are listed on this warrant, it's not subject to the new default system where default budget system that now requires
Breaking out.
breaking it out.
The default budget will probably see some discussion as well,
Yes.
with the way, the interpretation, I guess, of how it was calculated. We'll obviously handle them as they come up, but I think from the end.
Didn't have any discussion at all at the town meeting.
There wasn't.
on our side.
It will on our
And
side.
why do you think that?
Because there are multi-year contracts that we are engaged with, and
There are obligations that we are required to provide.
there's a question over whether the governing body who entered into those contracts is this board, or if it is specifically supposed to be the voters of the town, in which case multi-year contracts like transportation would have to be voted on year by year, rather than a 5-year engagement like we did, or a 10-year. Did we do 10? 5. Excuse me. So,
I think that people may want to have conversation and engage in this, but the default cannot be changed. So I think the discussion would be if anyone mentioned that they weren't pleased with the way we calculated the default.
Yeah, and you indicated that the attorney.
He will be there, yes.
And I would imagine at some point, if it got to a certain point, he would be able to say that it was calculated according to the statutes.
we did it according to the way our legal advised us. whether or not that's settled law
Yeah,
weird,
okay,
is a question.
okay.
So number 3,
Number 3 follows number 2 only in the case of number 2 being defeated.
right? I can.
So I'm not sure that there's much to say, and
If
we may
you want to
pass
speak,
right over it.
you could speak to it if you wanted to, or I can speak to it.
I could have you, yeah.
Um,
It may be a moot point in any event, so.
Ken, can you do number 4? Sure. Okay. And Leslie, do you want to present one? You can do number 5.
Everybody's involved.
Everybody's involved.
So with respect to number 4 and 5, please be prepared with the fund balance
Okay.
and be able to actually, I would ask Ken and Leslie to actually indicate what the fund balance is in your discussion, your opening discussion, so that people are aware straight away what your current fund balance is.
The second one is 0 at this point because it's
Okay.
established.
Okay. Yeah, good point. And so I guess Ken, for number 4, you should be prepared or the whole board should be prepared to talk about the expense history in that fund. Sort of along the same lines as was discussed on some of the funds at the town meeting, in terms of what is there a desired maximum? Are we trying to achieve a certain level and then stopping, or is it sort of a churn? It was 25,000 this year, we used 20, we need to get it back up to this 25,000. So
Okay.
that would be helpful, I think.
All right. And then Nate did write up a background information for the general public. I don't know if you got a copy of this.
I haven't seen it.
I would love to get your review on this before we pass it out.
Okay.
Yeah, and we haven't discussed it. I mean, it needs to.
I know, but I wanted to keep Eric in the loop.
Can somebody email me
Sure.
that? Patty, you have my email?
Yes, I can email it to you
That
once
would
it's
be
approved by the board, sure.
Never mind. I have a hard copy.
That's not final though. There's still some edits.
I'll-
that need to be done.
Okay, I'll just.
Yeah, if there's any feedback that you have, if you could let me know, and then I'll also let you know at the end of tonight that the board decided to move forward if it was okay with you.
Great.
Anything else?
I think not.
Okay. Should be good to go. We're in the cafeteria,
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
This is the starting time.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Mr. Moderator. Oh, the pile is shrinking rapidly.
School calendar.
Do we want to actually go over these while we're on the topic, or do we want to wait till later?
That might,
Yeah, that
because
was,
it's not on the agenda. so-
it is, deliberative session is the next one.
Sorry, I thought that was the deliberative session.
Yeah, warrant, that was the review of warrant.
Deliberative session. Sorry about that. So, I read this is great.
Okay. There are two things. One, the one that says background information is just a tweak from last year. We did this a similar document last year, and I kind of updated it with an update on a preview of what the articles are that they're voting on, different things about kind of planning and where we are. My names are wrong. Yeah,
You missed Harry.
yeah, yep. That's what I got that. So I will update that, but I'm certainly open to any other edits or suggestions or, whatever. We could also not use it if you think it's too.
I think this is great. I also wondered, is this that information that's beneficial for us to put out prior to?
I was gonna post these edits.
You were, okay.
Yeah.
This has to be purely information.
Exactly right.
So we have to read this with the eye, but this has to be purely information.
Would you like to?
Yeah, we can't be saying vote this way or that way. We can only say this is fact. Here's the fact. Yeah.
I would.
Yeah, run it past legal just to be sure.
And
nothing jumped at me that was
Okay.
anything
I
but
think last,
And then-
if it's a carryover from last year, we vetted it last year as well.
Yeah.
It's just,
yeah. And then the other document was specifically about the teacher contract, and I just put some. These are the same sort of ideas that I put out. They went out on Facebook a couple weeks ago. to the community page, and then I did add some of the numbers for different salary scales or schedules from around the district, and included Concord also on the back, just as a frame of reference for people.
I will say the section 3 under the contract, the competitive
Yep.
compensation, that does read, especially when an inspiring, energetic teacher is decided,
That's a good point.
that
Yep.
feels
A little bit too
a little too slanted.
too selly, too slanted. Okay, good. And then I can make those changes before I can take that language out, and I can send it to Patty next couple days.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Well, not a couple days.
Yeah,
It's
I was
gonna be
gonna
like
say
tonight.
tomorrow or tonight.
Tomorrow or tonight. All right, I could do it tonight.
Is there anything else anybody saw that they wanted to make a change with?
May I just ask you how many copies of the documents you would like us to prepare for this weekend?
We had,
I think we did last time.
yeah, I mean, the town's maybe had 50, you were there, right, 50, you were there as well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
100, 150 is probably enough. I hate to waste the paper, but
Well, since we're here, if all else failed, we could run to the office and make copies if we ran out,
get it now.
right?
Well, I'll do that.
So start with 100 and go from there.
Do you wanna do 100?
Do you think we'll have 100 people show up at deliberative? I hope 100 people show up at deliberative.
What's the moderator thing?
Eric, how many people do you think we're gonna have?
Are we keeping bets?
We're gonna make copies, so we're gonna. So if we made 100, we'd probably be okay.
Let's start with 100. Keep the photocopier warmed up just in case we're wrong.
Anything else in this that? All right. So I would go through it again with eye towards
Yeah.
making sure that the contract portion is
Yeah.
strictly informational.
Prior to distribution, if we can have both.
The
Vetted.
moderator and the lawyer make sure.
Yeah, the lawyer and the moderator, but yeah.
Yeah.
So are we okay with that?
Yep.
Board? Mm-hmm. You ready for school calendar?
Yes.
All right.
I have my notes on what we changed. Do you want me, or do you have it with you so you know the differences in the last version? Okay. I'll help you if you get stuck.
Alright, so last time we came, we talked about adding a conference day on Tuesday, November 5th. The board asked about having a second conference day and trying to figure out where we could balance out that extra day. We also, the reason for that too is not to end on Monday the 15th, given that we have to fill the snow days if everything passes. So, what we looked at was October 11th and October 14th is Columbus Day weekend. So what we did a long time ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago, we had school on Columbus Day because of the Deerfield Fair, and so we made that a teacher workshop day because our attendance dropped around 25-30% of our kids were in the building. So the proposal was to make Friday the teacher workshop day and give the staff off Monday, so they would match up with the rest of New England and have that day off. That would allow the June day to be bumped back one more day to the 16th. The other conference day we looked at was April 7th. This would coincide with the end of trimester 2, and parents would have the report cards by that point. Report cards would be going home more than likely around that week of March 25th, 26th, around that time period, given no big, emergencies or anything like that. So.
But this graph shows the conference day on November 7th, not on Columbus Day.
No.
November
fifth.
fifth.
Fifth, excuse me.
Yes, that's the conference day, but, I was talking about October, because we had to have another day to make up for this.
Okay.
Yeah, so, to give that other day, so we can bump the June 16th.
So is that Friday, the fair Friday?
No, Fair Friday is the 27th of September. So that would allow, families in Deerfield to have a 4-day weekend for Columbus Day weekend.
Is that, so I'm gonna play devil's advocate. That's hard for a lot of families, because for a lot of people, they're not supposed to take a vacation day prior to a long weekend, and it forces that, I guess is my only concern with it.
But half days are hard too. Which side are you on here, Mr. Whitmore?
You know, I don't have a good answer for you, Mr. Oxnard.
All right.
And the other thing would be just
Half days are very hard for
having
Mrs.
a random
Evans.
another day somewhere else in the calendar, but we looked at Thanksgiving, but that would require 2 days. We looked at the Christmas time, but that's always fluctuating, given the year and leap years and such, whether we have 2 weeks off, or you have, you don't wanna have kids coming back just for Friday after January break.
My concern is that one, that's pretty close to the start of school, and you have another couple of states that are, you know, just barely a month later. Is that enough to add value to,
The November conference day.
yeah.
Traditionally, our elementary school staff usually do conferences the last week of October. So,
Sorry, I'm getting confused, so
It's a teacher workship day.
October 11th is a teacher workshop day.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with conference.
correct.
All right.
And traditionally, that conference day has been on Columbus Day. So it's so families to have that Monday off.
And having dedicated days to conferences, which we don't do now,
Correct.
would provide an opportunity for parents to meet twice a year from K through 8.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So, as you know, like right now, our 7-18 is here from Bay conferences today at around noon, and their last one is around 7, and they're doing that again next Thursday. So this would help alleviate.
So there would still be an additional day that they would have to do it, just to accommodate the number of kids they have?
Yes, this helps buffer that. You know, you're not gonna get everybody in obviously in one day. You're always gonna have, especially with the 7-18 being so large, this will accommodate the majority of the rest of the school that have these conferences. Because if you look at kindergarten, there's 15 kids, 15 families, up to maybe 23 in some other classes, where you get to the middle school, 6th grade right now have close to 70, and 70 have close to 100. So.
Okay.
But not everybody shows up too.
So, I guess another question for you is where we are assuming we go to the hours schedule and the contract passes and all that, is there a benefit to bringing the kids in before Labor Day, or should we be starting them Tuesday after Labor Day weekend? I mean, it's 3 days right now. If you moved it to the other end, you'd still be out the same week. You just,
Given that there's not a tremendous amount of snow that we built in, but if you look at already, so far we've had 3 delays, so you get count, or if we go to hours, you're already at 6 hours. That's right there, you're not on the day, we're gonna have 2 snow days. Last year we had 8 with the windstorm. So if you do that, if you push it to the 19th, then you're looking like going into that final week if there's any big.
Right, you're putting us right back where we were then.
just asking.
Yeah,
Just
Um,
that's a good idea.
Does Concord start at the same time as this? Do you know, how does this line up with Concord's?
It's almost, yeah, it's pretty close from what I've seen years past.
August 27th is the first day for students.
And that's usually a freshman day, right? Or freshman is the 26th.
Yeah.
So for families who are straddling, this would be close to lining up the same day.
Yeah.
Okay.
We try to do a better job with that over the last 3 years.
And they go for 3 days, and then they have a long Labor Day weekend, and Friday and Monday off.
Which difference does it feel like that?
Well, when they're in high school, it's a little easier.
Um,
Leave your 15-year-old home alone.
All right, so we have a presentation of the calendar in front of us. Are there any suggestions or changes
Just one more question.
Sure.
You talked to the faculty about this. Are they
Yes.
in agreement with this general
Yes.
design? Okay.
Yeah. We ran this by, we had union representation,
Okay.
and they created essentially a subgroup from that to, and I worked with them on this.
I think that the other thing is we can't act on this until we know if the contract passes the ballot. Because this year was up in
We would have to revise it,
Yeah, you'd have to revise it.
so we could vote on it now and then in March, end of second week in March, we could readdress it if we had to.
We've had a few proposals already about what the state school is. So people planning,
That is some planning.
for next year.
for summer, people planning for the week.
Are you making clear that, or do we make clear that if this comes out, then this is tentative until March 12th?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Or do we just hold it tentatively until March 12th, I guess is what I'm trying to, from a logistics standpoint. Is there a benefit to passing it now?
Well, I think essentially, I mean, we're gonna have a similar start date no matter, if it's, the end date is, and if anybody's planning that far out, then they, I don't know, if they have too much time on their hands, or it's just
A lot of vacation, man.
really motivated.
Alright, so I'll move to approve.
Second.
Any additional discussion on the calendar?
We should have some half days.
You don't want one?
But I think we should have half days.
I think we should. All in favor?
Aye.
Space Needs Committee, next steps.
Next steps is I actually owe the presentation. I have finished adding the additional documentation
Great.
to it, so
Great.
I'm gonna get it over to the SAU so that they can get it posted. Publicly, that's it. We have not met. I think we met our mission statement as far as that.
You guys did a really good job, if I could say again. You guys did a really good job. It was really nice to, it gave a lot of clarity in terms of where we're probably going.
It was a great group of people to work with, and they had a lot of really great ideas. There's a lot of information there when you start putting it together. So,
So there's no update.
no real update. Nope.
I mean, are we taking this off the agenda now until you
We can take
determine
this
what
off.
you're doing for the future?
Well, we got the presentation and then,
You may wanna form a new committee to do
Yeah, I think
more work.
I think,
I mean, in the presentation, there's like, on the back slide, we do outline some stuff.
Suggestions, yeah.
So maybe there's a further discussion.
I don't think anybody's ready to talk about what the next phase of it looks like tonight. Am I correct?
Not tonight.
So, alright. Bus routes and stops committee, I think we had a couple of legal questions we were gonna have answered on this one. Did I get back to you? In regards to who can and cannot be on the committee?
Oh, okay, yes.
Data,
There are both legal questions. Yes, if we hire someone or they're a designated volunteer, they're bound by FERPA. So they would have the same, it's, if we have people come into schools as designated volunteers, anything they hear or see, they're bound by confidentiality, and that would be the same thing if we contracted or.
so if we asked Tina to join it, since she is a designated volunteer.
That's correct.
She's already approved.
That's correct.
Yeah. Alright, so do we wanna move ahead with the formation of that committee based on that knowledge?
Would most certainly, yeah, I mean, this is something we've been talking about, so the only way we're gonna make it happen is if we.
Get started.
So, we need an official motion to make the committee.
Move to form a, bus routes and stops committee.
Second.
Any discussion?
And we have
I
to,
think we've talked about what it would look like, but we held off on making it because we have the legal questions. So, everybody is familiar with what we discussed last time?
Do we need to clearly state the mission at some point? Define
Well,
what
the mission was revising and
making recommendations
making
for,
recommendations for the routes that the bus drives.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Do we need to name somebody to head up the committee?
Yep.
I nominate Jim.
Done for the rest of
Second.
All in
That's
favor?
not on the agenda.
That's the boss backing up.
No, Spencer comes right over here. All right, so I will do it. And I will ask other people. We already have commitments from Dale and from our fantastic volunteer coordinator. And I'll talk to other people about it.
Okay.
All right, that puts us on to board goals review. We touched on this last time. It's back on the agenda this time.
We table this till later in the meeting. I think this is one of those things maybe we can tackle.
We were half asleep.
No, but my thought is we have
We have a lot of things to do.
staff and some other stuff. Maybe we can try to get through some of that.
Is everybody okay tabling that until later in the meeting?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. PTO update.
We have not met since the last meeting, but, we're putting together candidates night and, Square One Art Project is one that goes back to the art department. We have a triathlon meeting next Tuesday and our meeting is Tuesday before candidates night.
Okay, and candidates night is
The 19th,
19th. Here
here, 6:30.
in the library, or are you guys going to
I
talk
think
to?
we're gonna do it in the cab.
Okay.
I've emailed all the candidates to invite them, all but three of them didn't have email, so I'll mail them a letter.
We may have more microphones. I think that could probably be used for that too, couldn't it?
Yeah, well, it would be wired up. They would be called up.
Okay, anything else, PTO? Any questions for the PTO? Staff report, Julianne Archer.
Hi. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I just wanted to come and introduce myself. You might have seen me on one of the teacher feature pages that Kristen wrote about me. So I'm new here to Deerfield this year. I'm the reading interventionist for K through 3. And so far, my experience here has been really positive. The staff has been really encouraging and supportive. And the mentoring program is great. Jamie Odd is my mentor. She's always available to help me with anything that I need, as well as Kristen Davis, who's indispensable in sharing her wealth of knowledge with me, helping guide me through my first year here, so it's been fabulous. The other thing I wanted to share with you is this primary literacy calendar that I've been making. So I can pass it around. This is for February. I've been making this since November, and it's being attached to the bridge, and as of I think last week, they're also putting it on the Deerfield website. So it's just to encourage parents and caregivers to interact and do its literacy activities, but more importantly, just encourage conversation and interaction to build language and vocabulary and background experiences. So they're just little activities to do each day. Also great this time of year for snow days if you're stuck home inside and kids are like, I'm bored, what am I gonna do? And you can look up something on here and give it a try. So the idea for this, I got some ideas of mine alone. I also took some from Reading Rockets and also Parents Make a Difference. So I just thought it was a great thing to have as a resource for teachers and parents. And that was it.
Awesome.
Thank you. Very cool.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Questions about it?
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Executive board report. We did have an executive board meeting, and we had a very nice data presentation, preliminary data presentation from Chris Motika that is going to eventually roll out first to the administration and staff and then to the general public in regards to the trends of the grading scores based on standardized tests across the entire SAU. They had done it in a platform that wasn't easily web served, so I think he has to review a bunch of it. But it was really informative, and look forward to seeing it rolled out to the general public. And we also talked about the same contract, special ed transportation contract.
Okay.
Principal's report. Where'd she go?
She had to step out for a meeting real quick.
Okay.
There's a parent.
Okay, we can roll things around
Yeah, I
here.
don't wanna step on her toes.
All right. Do you have a lot to say about curriculum?
I have a little bit to say.
We can go back to her after, I'm sure.
She's open to more would be happening.
And I don't know whether this kind of lines up with what you're saying about Chris Matika's efforts and assessments across the district. But at our curriculum review board meeting last week, we had some updates on different departments and the work they're doing with updating curriculum as usual, on schedule. There are a couple this year that are due. One of them is science, one of them is PE, and one of them is, I forget which one, I can find it. But the bulk of the discussion actually revolved around the assessment that we do in school here, and so sort of a periodic revisiting of the tests and the different assessment data points that we're collecting from our kids, and both primarily in math and also in reading, as benchmarks and noting and seeing the progress that our kids are making. But the question was more, do all of our the assessment points that we're collecting, is there any overlap? Are they all necessary? To what extent are teachers using the data that we get from them? And so this is the beginning of a longer discussion about maybe reevaluating some of the assessments that we do, and rethinking or perhaps discontinuing some of them if there is some overlap and if we don't need to be doing the tests that we are doing. So it was the question was brought from Kristen Davis, but it'll take, I think, some time. She's going to go back and talk to the different teachers and get some feedback on whether some are more essential than others, perhaps. And that discussion will continue over the next couple of months.
A number of years ago, I remember Paul doing a matrix of all of the different. Do you remember that? It was a matrix of all the different standardized tests, and he did kind of an assessment of assessments. An assessment of assessments, and there was overlap, and
Right.
you guys wound up cutting a couple of them out. Is it feel like it might be time to do that again?
I think that's essentially why that was brought to the table, just to look at, what we're doing, the amount of time it takes, that's a big piece of it for teachers. And again, are they using the data? I mean, they're obviously always changing up to how they're teaching, but is this something that can we get this for this, and do we need to double up on these, because you're only getting a small amount of information from this one, so it might be covered in this one, right? So it's essentially, it's kind of like the start of that conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
It might be worth. There was a handout that was given to the board, showing my old age here. It was probably 4 years ago.
I was here, so we would have been about that.
Yeah, I think it would be nice to see that again. Just kind of overview what we're doing.
I think it also kind of laid out when they occurred as well, so you could see
Yeah.
where that overlap was. It wasn't just a list
And
of.
I think that's the information that Kristen brought to.
Okay, it wasn't formatted that way, but
No,
Similar.
yeah, similar information probably. Right. Yeah.
They had donated several books last year as resources for
Right.
assessment design.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure that there's, I think actually I'm trying to talk to you about that.
And that's it from the CRB.
Okay. We could go on to policies, and then
I think we have a non-public.
we have a non-public. So
Started right in between the two.
do the non-public.
We're there.
The principal's report after.
All right. So as per NHRSA 91-A:3(2), is this B or C?
C.
C, I would entertain a motion to go into non-public.
So moved.
Roll call. Ken?
Yes.
Leslie? Jim, yes. Zach?
Yes.
Me?
Yes.
All right. I would ask that you are not here for hearing. Please leave. Is the
Thank you for adjusting your schedule for me. So this is actually going back to the 17th of January, because we didn't have a meeting the last week in January through today. So rehearsals for Shrek are in full swing, the middle school production. Doing a great job. UNH intern breakfast, interns, the 2019-2020 school year happened back on January 18th. We had about 7 or 8 interns come for the actual breakfast, and several have revisited the school, trying to figure out what it's between us and a couple of other schools. So we should know probably by March who really is interested in coming to Deerfield for next year for UNH interns. And we had all grade levels, including art. We had a special ed person as well. So on January 22nd, we had visitors from Chichester come to take a look at how Eureka is going at DCS. They spent some time with Heidi and Brian and I. They spent some time in the 3rd grade classroom and in the kindergarten classroom. And it was the day that we had a 2-hour delay. So they would have been in the 5th grade as well, but one of the 5th grade teachers came and spoke to the group about the way they do things in 5th grade. So it was a great day for we had 3 teachers, and then Brian and Dubustock, the principal from Chichester, came over as well. So they're trying to decide what program to go with, and I think they left here with a lot of good information. I've been going around with Heidi is checking in on the team meetings that they have every other week. Teams meet once a week to go over literacy data and information, and then the other week they flip flop and do math. And so I've been joining Heidi in the math meetings to talk about Eureka across the school for K to 5. So far I've only been able to meet with 4th and 5th grade, and have my other grades planned out for the month of February. Just checking in, seeing how it's going, what are some challenges that you're finding, what are some strengths in the program. Talk to 5th grade again about their how they're dividing their classes. We need to go talk a little bit more about how that decision was made to stay within the classes with switching classes. Do you want to share that information, or?
Sure, I'd be. Yes, I'd like to.
So I think that from what I can gather, the general consensus of the 5th grade teachers was that came from the previous administration, and it was a top-down decision without their input. And when they did hear that this was happening, that they were going to be switching classes, one of the 5th grade teachers had gone and spoken very strongly about the way that they do have it planned out with block scheduling, and so they were trying to negotiate some sort of middle ground on how to do the 5th grade grouping. And then when the administration took over, I had no idea that this conversation was even on the radar, and so they went with they went with how they wanted to do things, and that's the way it was. It's working well for them. They block out their mornings. They have 3 specific blocks, and they literally teach each classroom teaches 3 math lessons every single day. And then the other kids are working on other things in the curriculum, assembly-based things during these blocks. So. And then we had Wellness Day on January 25th. It was a wonderful day. Started off with a delicious potluck lunch, and then teachers, professionals, and teachers went into different groups. Some people did essential oils. Some people did yoga, strong stretching, bowling. Campus to go bowling. I don't know how Mr. Green did because he never reported back to me.
Not a good bowler.
He's a good bowler. Some people did some crafting. We had mindfulness going on, drumming, genealogy, Indian cooking. We had some of the young do some work on digestive health. They made a layered salad, line dancing. So it was a great day, and I think a lot of teachers really appreciated the time. Next year we will not have an early release, and so we're talking about how to rework that, incorporate the wellness activities into what we already have planned, whether we do half PD in the morning, wellness activities in the afternoon, or vice versa. Because I know that teachers would not like to see this go later. It's like it incorporated somehow. So we'll see what we can do about that. We had Career Day on the 28th of January with lots of career people came, and we thank all the career people who participated in that. Fifth grade, 5T had a Revolutionary War play, not too long ago, and as they're preparing for their trip, they're started studying the Revolutionary War, but they're preparing for their trip to Boston, where they walk the freedom trail and sleep at the Museum of Science. Apparently, I've been warned that it's very uncomfortable, and I have not been asked to go yet, though. So just put that on on notice. So the presenter came from the Paul Revere House and did a presentation with the students, and that was enjoyable for them. We had a Concord High School day for our 8th graders recently, where Mr. Flower, one of the school counselors, came and visited, talked to the 8th graders about course selection and walked them through that process, and then in the evening met with parents. We had a great turnout for that. Mr. Grieve recently visited Pembroke Hills School to visit their STEAM lab, and might want to say a few words about that?
Yeah, great opportunity. Patty made it looking up Susie Griffith's information. An opportunity to observe a second grade classroom, which is nice just to be my son at grade level and know what he's capable of. And it's something I would love to see happen here, given our infrastructure right now, it can't go forward. But it's just a great opportunity for kids to see life in another dynamic. They did something simple as taking soda vinegar and filling up the balloon, but to see that oh my God, it's gonna blow up, that type of thing is awesome. I think the best part about it too is it allows the teachers that teacher can take over some of those science experiments and things like that maybe the classroom teacher doesn't have time to set up and things of that nature, or have all the tools and the things available to them. So, and it allows for some of those teachers to have those kids go there, and then gives it more time for reading, writing, and math in the classroom setting. So, but the enthusiasm by the kids was amazing. So just to see that, I was really fortunate to be part of, and one day hopefully I'll have some of that here.
They follow a curriculum called Project Launch.
Yeah.
So
and she's tweaked it to become their own thing. Essentially, Project Launch is the way they have it set up. It's only similar to here with our specials. It's like 40-45 minutes. Project Launch is a lot of handwriting and assessments and that thing. So she's tweaked it to meet the need of the school, and she's done a really nice job. So there's an excellent teacher over there doing that. So.
Cool.
The DARE program will be starting in 5th grade. We'll be sending some information to parents this Friday. I'll be sending another one call now because the bridge is already done for Friday, so I was able to get my message in. So I'll send the one call out now just for parents to give them some information about the DARE program, give them contact information for Officer Millette, who will be doing the program here. It will be on Tuesdays, and the 5th grade team has worked out the time schedule. And he'll have 2 back-to-back classes, and then he'll have a break in between. And the hope is that he'll be able to spend some time in the school, go around classrooms, be in the cafeteria, join specials, that sort of thing. So he'll have some friendly police presence in the building. And then I also will give parents the opportunity to opt out if they don't want their child to participate. And we'll find an alternative activity for the students. So that will be starting this Tuesday coming up. 6th grade teachers and students completed their student-led conferences a couple weeks ago, and 7th and 8th grade team actually today from 12 to 7. Had quite a few parents and students come in. 7th and 8th grade students were prepared for student-led conferences through magnet and advisory time, where they were given a questionnaire and they were asked to answer a few questions. What are you most proud of this year? Different things like that, and the students it was laid out for them how it would work. They would come with their parents, they would get a chance to introduce their parents, and then talk about what are some strengths that they find this year, what are some areas that they need to grow in still, and teachers gave their feedback from each class as well. So we'll get some feedback about that and see how parents felt about that setup. Wednesday PD has been very busy over the last couple of weeks. Our elementary crew has been working on QPAs. They've been either refining a QPA, a quality performance assessment that they've done in the past, or they've organized one that they would like to put together. So they worked on that for a couple of weeks, while the middle school with Brian and Heidi and I followed up on some NUMS work with competency-based education versus competency competency-based grading in the middle school. So we pulled out there were 10, basically, from the research that we had done, there were 10 areas that really highlight a competency-based education, and during our work together, the middle school staff lined themselves up on a continuum right here in the library, being, one, all the way down here being the school that everybody should be modeled after, to the, no, we're not doing that at all, middle school. We had a Google slide presentation, and Heidi did a continuum to show where people were standing. They had a chance to talk, where they were, and share out with the group what are some highlights in the conversation. So we just keep moving that conversation forward about competency-based education at the middle school and what that looks like and how we're going to define it. So we'll just continue that work. It's not work that can be done overnight. Education is slow. And so we're just working through it and really, I think, making some strides for sure. We had Chris Motika here today. He rolled out a dashboard that he's going to be rolling out to everybody eventually. So we did some work on data today, or data, and just kind of developing our story. What is our story about data here at DCS? And he will be presenting at the March 20th school board meeting, showing you, making public the data dashboard that he has. We talked about a lot of, what is our story here at DCS, what are some implications that our data has on teaching and learning, how are we progressing as a team in the school, what goals might we want to achieve based on the data that we have. And then I do have some preliminary data in math that I went over with Heidi Cook today. Our DIBBLES data, which is the fluency portion of the math work, is all of that is, actually teachers are still working through that. It's due tomorrow, so we don't really have anything to say for that right now. But our STAR data we're looking pretty good. The average achievement of grades K through 8 in the fall was at 52%. Of the students' net proficiency for K to 8, and our winter benchmark is showing 74% of our students meeting benchmark. Also, Heidi gave me a growth graph of all the schools in the SAU, and DCS is showing to be being the third top school making growth over the entire SAU. And then our preliminary data in reading, our average achievement of grades K to 8 in our fall benchmark was 49%, and our winter benchmark is 58% meeting benchmark, meeting proficiency. And our growth graph in all the schools in the SAU shows DCS is the first in reading for student growth percentile.
Yeah, very cool. Can you give me those numbers? I'm sorry, one more time. The math you said was 52, and then went up to.
In the fall was 52 net proficiency, K
yeah.
over 8 average, K
yeah.
to 8, and the winter benchmark was 74%.
74, and then 49 to 58 in reading.
Yeah, 49 to 58.
Cool.
Do you
Thank
typically see in that data the fall testing and see a drastic swing like that as the kids are getting back into the cycle, or is it typically a pretty normal, pretty flat?
I don't know. Good question.
It was blown away by this. By the data.
So is that remarkable? I mean, is that
like,
remarkable, or is that normal?
Like, should we be like, wow, or should we be like, okay, that's what we normally do?
The math is a big wow.
That was cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
And that might be Eureka.
She thinks it's Eureka.
A Eureka moment.
Very
I
cool.
guess this, much now because it's 8:30 at night already, but I would be curious as to, in the fall, where is that benchmark set? Should we expect a low number, and then as we continue to judge against that benchmark, we should see over the course of the year
Some growth, right.
that growth towards 40%. What's our goal for that? We want them to meet the benchmark, or should we say we need 10% over the benchmark? Or again, it's a deeper conversation. What are we trying to do?
They will also be here on March 20th, our group, to give you all the information. They'll have crunched all the numbers
All your numbers. Great. Okay, any other questions?
Great.
Based on the inclement weather, I was
Table policies.
tabling policies and go straight to the second non-public. Is everyone okay with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so as per NHRSA 91-A:3-2C, I would entertain a motion to go into non-public.
So moved.
Second.
Ken?
Yes.
Leslie? Jim, yes. Zach?
Yes.
Yes. And at 8:33, we are going into non-public. 50.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to seal the minutes of the non-public session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I would-
hold on a second. Do we have any appointments or resignations?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to adjourn.
So moved.